Play a little bit alone for you, and then we have a great house rhythm section with Jeff Johnson and Steve Smith, who owns the drum school, as you know, with Christy. And I appreciate their hosting us today. They're good friends. And Jeff and I go way back to the early 90s. We love playing together. I haven't played with him in a while, so I'm happy he's here to join us too. How many people here are exploring solo guitar already? Yeah. Many hands are going up. That's good. That's something we can do, right? Hey, Danny. So I would encourage you to maybe listen if you're not doing it already. Sounds like many of you are already. And my friend Hal Merrill here does it on pedal steel, does it beautifully. So that means every restaurant, every art gallery, every private party is a potential gig for us. And so just check out the great solo guitarists online to get a sense of sort of a frame of reference. Someone like Joe Pass is a good place to start. Current generation people like Martin Taylor, some folks that are not really known as solo guitarists who do it very well. There are people like Elad Hexelman, Julian Lage, many others. So I started doing this probably in the 1970s at little art galleries and restaurants, and I still do those gigs sometimes. But I've done it long enough that I also feel comfortable doing it in a concert setting or doing recordings. And it's still a work in progress for me. The people who think about the guitar like a piano that you might want to check out are people like Jimmy Weibel, Ted Green, Johnny Smith. So in their hands, it's like a little orchestra. And you can see almost anybody that you like online. Just type their name in, and those names will be ones that I'll be sending along to you. I had the pleasure of knowing Jimmy Weibel a bit, and he was a very self-effacing, unassuming man who didn't really promote himself, but he was an unbelievable solo guitarist, kind of Johnny Smith meets Bach. Lots of beautiful inner voice movement, pianistic voicings. And he's got some books out. One that got republished by David Oakes in the 90s is called The Art of Two-Line Improvisation. And looking at one bar of Jimmy Weibel is really like going to school for solo guitar in terms of how he thinks about deconstructing chords, inner voice movement, as I mentioned, beautiful voicings, open string voicings. So I love Jimmy. And I watched him do some of these etudes at his house. And when I first looked at it, I didn't have a clue what he was doing. And I've watched many guitar players' hands over the years. But after a while, I picked up some familiar shapes, and I realized he was just deconstructing the chords and creating shell voicings out of existing fingerings, which you guys can do too. So let me play a little bit alone for you, and I welcome questions. And we could do some duo guitar here. I also like duo guitar. I do that all over the world with great guitar players, and that's something else that only we can do, really. So I would encourage you to maybe try to form a duo with another guitarist here. In fact, I think a couple of friends here are doing that already. My new friend Ford and my old friend Bob here, I think they played once together, and they're going to do it some more together, I think. So, we can trade technical information about voicings, fingerings, equipment, creating chord melody arrangements together, learning how to leave space for each other when we're playing together. So I might invite one of you guys up to play with me, if you like, and we can try to demonstrate that. How many people know Bill Evans composing? You like his writing? He's not really performed that often these days in terms of his compositions. Probably many of you know Waltz for Debbie and Blue and Green from the Miles Davis record. That tune wrongly credited to Miles. It was really Bill who wrote it, one of my favorite ballads. But there's a book that I'd recommend for my friend Sid Jacobs in L.A., who studied with Jimmy Weibel, so he knows and can play Jimmy's etudes beautifully. He wrote a book that Hal Leonard published called The Bill Evans Guitar Book. And Sid took about 15 of Bill's melodies and arranged them for the guitar using as much of Bill's information as he could realistically translate to the guitar. So they're beautiful tunes, but if you don't want to play any of the tunes, just look at a couple of bars of any one of those tunes, and you're going to find some beautiful pianistic voicings, open strings, inner voice movement. And you really kind of hear Bill realized on the guitar. It's beautiful. So let me play you one of the tunes that's not in the book, but another tune from Bill that I like that I've been playing. I only really play a few of Bill's tunes from memory. I'd like to learn a few more. I have Sid's book. And there's also a CD of Sid playing the arrangements, and you can see Sid on YouTube. And I think you'd like his solo playing, also a bit like Jimmy in terms of thinking pianistically on the guitar. So here's my take on a Bill Evans tune from the mid-1960s called Funny Man. Has anyone heard this one? It's not really performed very often. Bill's harmony is dense, but it's logical. I can also show you his take on, if I get Jeff up here, we might play Everything I Love. Jeff and I have been playing that one for years using Bill's changes. And Bill also had a very interesting take on standards, also inserting a lot of additional harmony that's not part of the original changes. So here's Funny Man from Bill Evans, about 1965, give or take. Thanks, guys. Can you kind of get the sense of how Bill thinks about harmony? It's busy, right? But it's basically a couple of keys. It's E flat, G flat, and G. That's the tune, pretty much. And I think about key centers. That's how I memorize changes. I look at a tune and I say, let me see if I can find some chords that relate to a key center. And Bill always thinks that way, if you look at the way he writes. It's a lot of harmony, but it's mostly, it's fourths. There's a long cycle of fourths in that tune. Starts on a 1 chord, goes to a 4 chord, goes to the relative minor, long cycle, back to a 4 chord. It's pretty logical once you spend a minute staring at it. It's not hard to memorize, actually, once you've spent a little time with it. Well, someone's coming in, or maybe not. I think excuse for the donuts. That happens later. So I would encourage you to check out some of Bill's compositions. There's also a Bill Evans fake book. Can I play one more of Bill's tunes? I feel like playing another. The only other one I have memorized. And this is in Sid's book with Bill's actual voicings, but in my case, this is my arrangement, but it's his melody. And this tune has a lyric, so if you're working with a singer, this is one you might explore. It's called Remembering the Rain. So in Bill's fake book, which is I think about 50, 60 tunes, you see probably 7 or 8 or maybe more tunes that have lyrics. He collaborated with Gene Lees and other lyricists. And this one is beautiful. It's called Remembering the Rain. And Bill actually liked to compose in the key of A, perfect for us, open strings. And this tune actually, the opening cadence is 1 to 5 minor. Usually 5 obviously is dominant. Check this out. It's almost all related to the A major scale, Remembering the Rain. And this is in Sid's book with Bill's actual voicings. Thanks, guys. Do those songs sound like they're fun to play? They're fun to play. It's just fun to play as beautiful melodies, actually. So if I were to play those for you, again, they would sound a little different. Those arrangements are kind of worked out, but not completely. So I'm not bored every time I play them. I've been playing these songs for years. So I try to make small variations. Could you guys feel that I was playing a pulse but not a fixed beater when I got into the blowing? That was not 4/4 time. That was just a pulse. So I was on some chords for 2 beats. Someone could transcribe that probably if they had a lot of patience, and you find a bar of 7/4 and a bar of 3/4. But I was just thinking a pulse. That's harder to do with a group, but possible. So the beauty of playing alone is you can modulate, you can go in and out of time, you can change keys, and that allows us certain freedoms that are fun playing alone. I would miss the conversation if I only played alone, but I do like to play alone sometimes. Any comments, questions at the moment? You don't have to say a word. I can rattle on for hours. So. I would suggest to you that guitar players sometimes are a little lazy about our chords and our comping. We're focusing mostly on single line playing, which is great, but there's a whole world of beautiful pianistic chords just waiting for us if you want to explore some solo playing or intimate duo or even trio playing. So some of these kinds of chords that I use are not appropriate playing, maybe with a rhythm section that's energetic and we're playing a fast tempo. But in this setting, I can play some of these more complex chords. If I were to play some of these tunes with a group, I would have a simpler version of these chord melodies. But it's intimidating to open a good chord book from someone like Ted Green or Mick Goodrick or Randy Vincent, who's a friend, because you see dozens of unfamiliar fingerings. I would suggest the best way to learn new chords is in the context of an arrangement. That can be someone else's arrangement initially, like something from the Sid Jacobs book, or if you haven't done a lot of chord melody work yet, Joe Pass and Wes Montgomery are both good places to start because they use simple chords and nice arrangements. No chord that Joe Pass plays is difficult to play. He said himself, he said cowboy chords. They weren't really cowboy chords, but Joe liked simple voicings, but beautiful integration of single lines and chords together, a nice voice leading, and certainly some interesting harmony. Although Joe didn't use, like I said, complicated fingerings. He had nice chord melodies, and you can still get his chord solos book. It's got Summertime in it, Misty, a blues, stuff that you could play, absolutely. And Wes Montgomery the same. He had kind of a formula, single lines, octaves, block chords. And those chords are not complicated either, similar to what Joe Pass used. So if you haven't had a lot of experience yet with chord melody, those are 2 good starting points, Joe and Wes, for sure. Again, more pianistic folks like Jimmy Weibel, Ted Green, those take longer, to learn. But I would suggest if you're looking at a complicated chord melody, just look at 1 bar of Jimmy Weibel, and you're going to have all sorts of beautiful things in there to kind of instruct you about voice leading, bass movement, open string voicings, etc. How many people are composing? Maybe I'll play one of my tunes. Anyone writing their own music? I know Hal is. Okay. So composing and improvising reinforce each other, don't they? In my case, maybe yours too, sometimes a song can grow out of just a little portion of a solo that you feel is strong enough melodically that you could extrapolate that out into a longer actual piece of music. Some people start with the chords and create a melody afterwards. Some people start with a melody and the chords come later. If you get stuck, you might do what Charlie Parker did, take a song that you like already and take away the original melody and try to compose your own melody based on those changes. My feeling is you should be able to sing the melody that you're composing. It should be singable, I think. And improvising kind of the same, I think, really. Herb Ellis said you shouldn't play anything you can't sing. George Benson's a good example of that. I don't think I follow that rule all the time, but I try to a lot of the time. I don't want it to sound complicated or technical. I mean, all the training to me is about trying to be able to compose a beautiful melody over any set of changes, whatever your concept of beautiful is. So in my case, I hear the chords and the single line together. I hear them as chord melody. And I can show you on this one I'm going to play for you. The opening line kind of sounds like a blues scale if you just hear the single notes. But the chords underneath, one of my little strategies is to take a relatively simple line and color it with more complex harmony underneath. So here's the opening line by itself. Y'all could play that. That's just kind of E blues, right? Here it is with the chords. It's some variations on E minor and E dominant. Here's the opening line again with the chords. Does that sound a little more interesting? A little. So that's all variations on E Dorian, one E melodic minor chord, and then some E7. So I'll play you the whole tune. This one's called Tapioca Time. It's about dessert. And I'm going to send you this chart. So you probably, I don't think you're going to want to play any of my songs probably, but they're all chord melodies, so there may be some chords in there for you. So here's Tapioca Time. Thanks, guys. So that sounds like dessert, kind of, right? So simple melody. Could you hear me also repeating some rhythmic figures? Here's the opening phrase. Here's the phrase a little later. A little better. So it's exactly the same rhythm with different harmony. You notice I'm using lots of double stops. I got that from Jimmy Weibel, just watching him deconstruct chords. And again, I suspect you don't want to play the song. However, there may be some voicings in there for you. Those opening Dorian chords all have minor seconds in them. Here's the first voicing. So I got a C sharp and a D. Then I've got just the open strings. That's just a real basic E minor with a flat 7, flat 3, and 5. And then this, just real simple E minor with the G and the F sharp. So the open high strings, and then this is a flat 5 and a 5 together. But you don't really hear that because the melody on top is so. This is E melodic minor, got the major 7, and these are all just E7s with passing tones. That's mostly F melodic minor territory, you know, 7th mode, super Lohengrin. And I'm going to send you articles that talk about all that stuff. So we can use melodic minor chords as dominant chords. I do it all the time in 4 keys. That corresponds to the 4 modes of the melodic minor, and I can explain some of that today if you're interested. But basically, I really like the 4 scales I use are the major scale, melodic, harmonic minor, harmonic major, and all those modes are pretty interesting. And I think of the modes as keys superimposed over the top of the basic dominant major or minor chord. So I'm mixing together a real simple dominant arpeggio with a melodic minor in any one of 4 keys to generate different kinds of tension. This is all in the articles I'll send to you guys. So we could play a little more, or we could talk a little. Any questions for me about anything right now? No questions. You have all the answers. Yes?
Yeah, I wonder if you have any tips for working with a vocalist and being a good accompanist.
Sure. Well, listen to the great guitar voice duets. There are many. Joe Pass, Ella, Tuck and Patty. Martin Taylor's worked with a bunch of good singers, either Homero Lubambo or Russell Malone with Diane Reeves. Who else likes to work with singers who are guitar players? Let me think about that. There are others, I'm sure. Those are the ones just come to mind right now. There are tons of Brazilian. Just type in Brazilian guitar voice duos on YouTube. You're probably going to find Homero with a bunch of people. Maybe Chico Pinheiro, maybe Jobim even. I'm not sure. I think accompaniment, it's pretty personal. You know, what I try to do, and I've worked with a lot of great singers, is to support them and maybe give them something to respond to without creating any problems, basically. So if I'm using a tension, I'm always putting it in the middle of the chord, and I think about accompaniment kind of as simplified chord melody, meaning I'm always paying attention to the top note of the chord. I don't want too much activity on the top end of the chord, because that's going to interfere with the melody or whoever's improvising if the singer likes to scat. So I think we can learn a lot from listening to piano, quite honestly. I mean, I love guitar duo with voice. So in that case, I'm more active in the bass. Maybe I'll try to pretend I'm comping for somebody singing. Should we do that on a standard? Pick a tune that we all know.
I'm getting sentimental.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's not played so often, but I like that one. Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, so I'm going to pretend I'm comping for somebody singing on that tune. I think F is a good key for that one. So I might actually do a little more than I would if someone was actually singing, but I'll try to really imagine someone singing this. Hang on. I wouldn't count that way for every singer. But if a singer's really grounded in the form and has a good time, I'll play that way. So some bass line stuff, over the bar line stuff, some pedals, some open strings, but I'm always thinking about the top note of the chord. Again, I don't want too much activity on top. That's going to interfere with the melody. So it really sounds more like piano comping, doesn't it? Because I listen to piano players to get my ideas, not guitar players mostly. There's some guitar players who are very good accompanists. Ed Bickert is one that comes to mind I like very much. Joe Pasadilla was great. All the people I just mentioned, Russell and Homero Lubambo and Martin Taylor, they're all beautiful accompanists. But don't sleep on piano players. And listen to how Bill Evans and Herbie Hancock comp for anybody. Check out how Herbie comps on that Joni Letters record. It's playing Joni Mitchell tunes, but the way he shades and how he plays over the bar and plays beautiful little discrete fills. It's funny because some fills that work on the piano would sound awful and busy on the guitar. Sometimes a piano player do an 8th note run or a 16th note run with the soft pedal on, it sounds great. If we tried that, it would sound awful. Pasquale Di Grasso is an interesting guitar player, accompanist with him, Samara Joy. They're doing some interesting stuff in duo with groups, and he sounds like a piano basically. It's a little busy, but it's great, and he accompanies beautifully. So he's someone to check out of the current generation of younger players. Did that kind of give you an idea about how I think about accompanying a singer? A little bit? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love doing it. My girlfriend's really a pretty good amateur singer, and she's getting better all the time. And so after dinner, we'll always sit down to a few tunes, and it's helping me to work with her. Other comments or questions? Would someone we could talk a bit of theory, or would someone like to come up and play with me? What do you prefer? Yeah? Okay. Should we get the guys up? You want to hear a little bit of trio? And then we'll get you guys up too. I want to make sure that I have everybody's email before you all go today, please, so I can send you this material. So give us a minute just to get the bass and the drums dialed in. Maybe I can chat a bit while they're doing that. So Jeff Johnson and I are in a group called Scenes, and we've been playing together on and off since the early 90s. And the group started in the early 2000s. They actually started as a trio without me, with Rick Mandyke, Jeff, and John Bishop, playing a regular gig in Ballard at a tavern that's I don't think it's still there anymore. And because I knew them all, I just asked if I could sit in one night, and we had fun. So that became a group for a while. And we did a recording for Origin about more than 20 years ago now. And then Rick unfortunately had some health issues and had to lay off the horn for about 15 years. And he had a musical life as a guitar player and piano player instead. I've heard he's great on both. I haven't heard him on either one. But then he addressed his medical issues, and he's back playing the horn better than ever. So we're now back as a quartet, and we've done a couple of records as a quartet. And I'm sure you probably hear Rick and John and Jeff around town in different combinations. They also have a group with Tom Marriott, just with trumpet, sax, bass, and drums. Does that group have a name, Jeff? Oh, okay. Trouble. That's the name of the band. Looking for Trouble. But I haven't heard it, but I bet it's great. That's right. Hey, by the way, if anyone's floating around, I'm in the house bands at the Royal Room tomorrow night with Tom, and also at the Owl and Thistle on Tuesday. So come on out and play with us. You guys making the rounds of some of the sessions in town? That's a great way just to hear what people are up to learn repertoire, to make new musical friends. And I still like playing jam sessions sometimes. I still do it. Or I'll show up at a session just to sit in once in a while if I'm around. See what bass Jeff brought today. A good one. Yes, he has multiple basses. There we go. You get it up there? All right. Okay. So I don't think we've played with the three of us before, but we do this all the time in jazz. So Jeff and Steve I'm guessing, have played together, and Steve and I have played together, but as a trio we have not. Yeah? Okay. So, but we do this all the time in jazz, right? So we're just looking for some common ground, and the fact that Jeff and I have this long history helps, I think. He and I have a similar idea about how the time feel should go. And Jeff, as you probably know, is very solid with his quarter notes, but he's also real open and conversational, and I really like both approaches on the bass, and so does Jeff. So we might do a standard for you.
John's tunes have kind of unusual values.
Yeah, mine are a bit tricky.
We get together when I'm working on John's pieces. We basically learn phrase by phrase. So rather than me thinking about odd meters, I'm thinking solely about phrases, phrase lengths. I'm not counting so much. So we have this uncanny way. We go over the music together as we're preparing it. And then after that, we add the drummer. And hopefully he'll pay some to what's going on. It's been unique, and it's been a really pleasurable experience to play with somebody like John, because nobody plays like this man. I mean, he has his influence and his mention to you, but I have never played with another guitarist that has so much interesting harmony, like he talked about guitar being orchestral. I hear it when I'm hearing John. I just kind of stay out of his way. I used to try and figure out what he was doing and figure out how to learn So sometimes we're playing 10-string guitar between us.
That's right.
Something like that. Something like that.
I would also argue that Jeff has a really unique voice on the bass, and also as a composer. Jeff's written a lot of great tunes. We've recorded many of his and some of mine. And I don't really consciously think about odd meters in my phrases. It just, I'll count out a phrase after I play it and realize, oh, here's a bar of 7/4. And I never do that on the blowing. That's just more trouble than it's worth. So the blowing is usually 3/4 or 4/4. But very often my head's a mixed meter, just because a phrase dictates a particular meter. And Jeff is kind enough to be patient and work through that with me. We've done a few of my tunes on the most recent records. The last one we did came out pretty well. It's a live one. We did at Earshot a couple of years ago. That's called Variable Clouds. That's our last one. But we have 7 or 8 now on the Origin label as a group. A couple of 3 now with Rick, and I think 4 or 5 as a trio. One with Hans Teuber, actually, too. So God bless Origin for keeping the lights on and keeping good music coming out there. They have 750 CDs in the catalog and counting. I'm sure you guys know some of the Origin artists here, but they've got artists from all over the world. And are you on Origin? You could be. No reason why you shouldn't be. So you all know John and Matt Jorgensen, I'm sure. They started that label 25 years ago, and they're still going strong. And that gives us a chance to put out some product. How many people are recording themselves, either at sessions or gigs? It's important, because the way you hear yourself as you play is very different from listening to a recorded version of yourself, especially if you let a little time pass between the time of the recording and the time that you listen. Basically, our playing usually sounds more interesting and creative to everybody else than it does to us, because we know more or less what we're about to play and we play it. The audience and the other members of the band don't have a clue what we're going to do next, even if they know our playing. So, generally speaking, to get the audience's perspective, we should record ourselves and listen to it a week later. And then that might give you some ideas about fine-tuning and working on your playing that you don't get if you don't record yourself. So I would recommend it. Not necessarily every gig, but do it often enough that you can check in with yourself and just kind of see where you are. And Jeff's trying to get a sound out of this borrowed amplifier here. Is that working? All right. Standard, perhaps? We haven't played in a while.
Yeah, you want to do that one we were talking about? Everything I love? Everything I love?
Yeah, that one, all right. So I got this chart from Jay Thomas in the 80s, and Jay's still playing beautifully. I saw him a couple of nights ago. He sat in with me at the Latona pub gig that Phil Sparks does. You all know about the Latona pub gig that Phil Sparks does? No cover, every Friday, 5 to 7. Noisy but fun. So Phil's up there, 65th and Latona, not that far away. And it's usually him and Adam Kessler and somebody else. So this Friday was me. And Jay Thomas very often comes in if I'm here, and Jay came in too. Sounded great on both trumpet and saxophone. If you're in that neighborhood, or it's worth the trip up if you're nearby. It's noisy, but people are appreciative and really great staff, and I'd recommend it. Phil's been doing that gig for 10 years. I would recommend it. So this chart that we're about to play is Bill Evans. I'm told Bill Evans changes. I should verify this with Chuck Israels. But I'm told that from Jay that it's Bill Evans changes on Everything I Love, a Cole Porter tune. Anyone play this one, Everything I Love? It's not really a common jam session tune. Anybody know it? I think that's one of the ones I'm going to send to you. I think I have that in my little PDF file. Not a hard tune. It's basically E flat and G flat, kind of, with lots of stuff in between. So here it is. Thanks, guys. So that tune is a mouthful of changes, but it also is very logical. Again, if you think of key centers, it moves around, but you know it's something that you can memorize. You can actually train yourself to memorize changes more efficiently. Want to hear some secret strategies for that? We talked about key centers. Here's something I like to do, and I can demonstrate a few of these. We might do it actually with the group. Play things in multiple keys, or create arrangements with modulations built into the tune. I've got a bunch of those, and some of those I'll share with you. That helps you see relationships. So your goal should be to look at any set of changes and say, how can I essentially look at more than one change at a time? There's some modern jazz compositions are more challenging to memorize because they're not functional harmony. Some Wayne Shorter songs you look and there's not a 2-5-1 in sight. So I'm just using the melody and connecting chord tones to find melodies of my own. That's how I do it. But a standard is easier because you see familiar harmony, at the very least some 2-5-1s. So this tune has lots of those, basically. Lots of cycle things. Very often it's chromatic harmony going down or up in fourths, or again, it's the two key centers are pretty much E flat and G flat for this tune. That's kind of it. So once you see how the different chords relate to those two key centers, it gets easier. So playing things in multiple keys is a way to do that. You all know the Toots Thielemans version of Days of Wine and Roses. So he did this with Bill Evans in the 80s. That's a good jam session tune. You all know Days of Wine and Roses. You should know it because it's called very often the jam sessions. So it's a 32-bar tune. Toots Thielemans took the second half of that tune and played it up a minor third in A flat. And that happened long enough ago that many people play that. So if it's called on a session, you might say, do you play it in the one key or the two keys? I'd say most people probably play it in F, but enough people do play it in both keys. Here's another variation. John Abercrombie and Eddie Laverne took the second half and played it up a major third in A. And then when you get to the last bar of the tune, which would normally be the tonic, if you make that A minor, then we have a nice little 3-6-2-5-1 back to F. So I tried in both keys sometimes. I like playing a few things in odd meters. I like trying things in multiple keys, different keys. George Benson and Frank Sinatra recorded Stella in G. Stella's pretty nice in G. So that takes a minute to transpose that mouthful of chords to a new key, but it's doable, and it's nice in that key. So maybe start with a familiar tune that's easier to transpose. You know, take a tune that you know well that's not super complicated, play it in another key. Or take a song that can be easily divided. 32 bars is easy, 16 and 16. One of the songs I'll send to you is a beautiful Billy Strayhorn ballad called Isfahan from the Far East Suite. Billy liked the key of D flat for that tune. Upper Manhattan Medical Group, Lush Life, and a bunch of others he liked to compose in that key. Bassist Steve Gilmore took the first 16 down a half step in C. So the first 16 of Isfahan in C, second 16 in Billy's original key of D flat. I've been playing that arrangement for years. We maybe have played that together, maybe. So I've got probably half a dozen tunes with modulations like this built into the arrangement. And that has helped me to just memorize changes in general because I'm looking for relationships. So that's something you could do. Start out with familiar tunes, play them in other keys. And you're going to find that you're able to memorize changes more efficiently and more quickly. I guarantee it. So your goal should be to get your eye off the page as quickly as possible. We make better music when we're not staring at the changes. So we can train ourselves to memorize things more quickly. And I would recommend that you do that too. How about one more song with a trio, and then maybe we can get some of you guys up. Some of you all feel like playing? I hope so. Part of this is a jam session today, yes? Okay, let's do another. Maybe a Latin tune. What should we do? What do you like? We could do, how about some? Here's a tune of Jeff's that we recorded many years ago. It's on Steve has not played it, but it's like an open, even eighth thing. You'll hear it. Nothing tricky in the arrangement. A tune of Jeff's, and it's fun. And Jeff has a way to create beautiful melodies with.
It's not actually my song. I wrote the bass line.
Okay.
But it's written by a friend of mine who was a brilliant pianist in Minneapolis, where I'm from. And nobody will have ever heard of him or will ever hear of him. There's a lot of musicians like that. Including here. Yeah. I heard it here. There's a little band in Peking. So just kind of listen to where we are. Yeah, really good. One.
Thanks, guys. And Jeff is a little modest about his composing abilities, although maybe he did kind of co-write that one. But he's got a lot of great tunes on his own records and some of the things we've done with scenes. And I think Steve played that very well for the first time. We caught up on, we played a few triplets at the same time that weren't planned, that were fun. Would someone like to come up and join us? You're invited. We have a guitar amp here. Someone feel like coming up to play?
I'll do it.
Come on up, Bob.
Scare me to death. Not 'cause I couldn't do it.
Let's play a standard. Bob Sorelli is an old friend, and he's been kind enough actually to host us. He's been kind enough to host us for some house concerts with Julie at his home, and I think we're going to maybe do another one sometime soon. Sure, yes you can. Let's just play something you know. That makes it easier. Could be a blues, could be a simple standard. And I should point out that this guitar that Bob is playing is made by the same maker that made my guitar, a man named Roscoe Wright, who makes really nice instruments. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Christy. You need a chord?
Yeah.
I can probably find you
one? See if there are guitar chords somewhere laying around. I think I've got one in the back, maybe.
There has to be.
What would you like to play?
This is my Alone Together.
Alone Together.
How many people are playing Alone Together? That's a jam session tune you should know, because it comes up often at sessions. One of the best ways to learn jazz jam session repertoire is just to show up with some sessions. Thank you, Christy. That should probably be okay. If you know a song that's being played, be an active listener. Follow along. You know, most of these standards, not all, but many of them have 32-bar AABA forms, so they're, you know, pretty straightforward and pretty easy to keep track of. Learn the melodies to a song, even if you're not playing the melody in a group, because the melody helps you keep your place in the tune. And the melody is a way to essentially create a context for your solo. I'm singing the melody to myself when the tune's going on. And very often I'm using some portion of the melody, either the actual melody or the harmonic rhythms as the melody in my solo. I want my solo somehow to be grounded in the tune. So, you all know Alone Together? I hope you do. If not, you should know it. This is, again, one of the best ways to learn repertoire. Show up at some sessions. Got enough volume for yourself? You up all the way? There you go. You have volume. Yeah. It's going to be fine. You like playing melody? Yeah, one other thing I'd like to say about melodies to standards. For the most part, with a few exceptions like George Gershwin, these songs were written by good composers who are not jazz musicians, meaning the melodies rhythmically are not so jazzy. It's mostly quarter notes, maybe some eighth notes, half notes. But if you listen to any great jazz vocalist or instrumentalist play the melodies to these tunes, there's more syncopation happening, there's more rhythmic activity. So pay attention to how they interpret a melody. Very often they will add some other notes that reference the chord quality that are not part of the written melody. They might leave out a note or two. Miles Davis playing Someday My Prince Will Come is very different from Snow White singing Someday My Prince Will Come. And so that essentially when Miles decided to plug in the harmon mute and play Someday My Prince Will Come, it became part of the jazz repertoire. So just pay attention to how these folks play the melodies too, not only how they solo on them. And we can be creative with the melodies as well. The melodies are important. So here's Alone Together.
Sandbar phrase, yeah. That's right. I need to. I will.
All right. Hal, you'd like to play something? Okay. Would someone else like to pop up? Come on up, please. Absolutely. How about a hand for Bob?
Thank you. Nice job.
I recognize that melody.
Did you? Good.
I did. Beautifully done.
Are we having fun yet? You're all invited to play. I hope you're going to come up, Danny.
But not bad to have if you need it. What would you like to play? Something Latin or a waltz, maybe just something a little different from a swinger. What do you feel like? Is there a table? There is. There is. What would you like to play?
Let's see. How about well, I just played "Someday My Prince Will Come"
You can do
yesterday
that.
here.
You know,
We're
there's a
gonna do
nice.
that one again?
There's a nice Jim Hall concert back on Sunday. My Prince called Waltz New. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard that.
I'll play for you after we do the tune.
Cool. Cool.
So it's not a bad idea to have a few waltzes in your repertoire. So we're going to do "Someday My Prince Will Come." How many people know this one? It's a good one. There's a nice Jim Hall contrafact that I'll play for you guys after on this tune called "Waltz New." Anyone heard that tune from Jim Hall?
I think I got plenty.
It's like one of his solos. It's pretty nice. I'll play the melody afterwards.
That pedal, and you can jump in and out of whatever you like.
Sure.
I'll be fine, yes. Left pedal there, Maestro. Tempo, where do you like it? That where you like? Okay. Here's our quarter, gentlemen. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2.
I'm Thomas. Thomas. Nice to meet you, gentlemen.
How about a hand for Thomas? I thought he played that well. Want to hear the Jim Hall contrafact? It's a little experiment for them. You play the original melody. Let's leave him plugged in for 1 sec, please, Jeff. I just want you to hear the contrafact that kind of lines up with the original melody because it's much more complicated. The only thing that Jim does is slightly different. That descending D minor, D flat diminished. The second time he slips it a quick 2-5 to B. So the first time he does this. If you can change one note in the melody, it'll fit. If you do this the first time, second time go. Play A flat instead of A, and that'll fit Jim's melody.
Cool.
So I'm going to have Thomas play the original melody, and I'm going to play Jim's Waltz New. So they line up in an interesting way. Check it out. Just you and me. His melody's a little complicated, so we're going to go slightly slower. Be there. 1, 2, 3. that's check out. You can find that in Jim Hall's book, Exploring Jazz Guitar. It came out in the early '90s. And you can find it online too with him playing it. Waltz New. It's a beautiful little contrafact. How about another hand for Thomas? All right. Nice job. You played well. Okay. Danny, come up here. Let's go. And Hal, you're next. Or actually, Hal, if you're set up and ready to go, Danny, if you don't mind, since Hal was setting up. Oh, okay, then Hal is next. So, okay, jam sessions, guys, are useful, yes? For building repertoire, for making new connections, hopefully, for finding out just how to play in situations where you just are thrown up in a situation with not a lot of time to prepare. It's all good training. Yeah, and there are multiple jam sessions going on here. Maybe jam sessions here as well. Yes, Steve, you host the sessions here? Excellent. Okay, so spread the word about the sessions here. The other ones that I know about are Royal Room and Owl and Thistle. Perhaps there are others, but do show up when you can to support the venues and also to make new musical friends, to learn about repertoire, etc. Well, maybe we'll let Danny jump up then. Danny, come on up while Hal's getting a sound dialed in. Yeah, come on up. Okay. I don't think the cord's long enough unless you got your own amp. You got to jump up here with us. Yeah. So Danny Godinez has been a friend for a while, and some of you maybe have heard him play locally and elsewhere. Doing that for us. Danny, there's a chord up here. Come on up. Yeah, just like we have been doing. No, it's just, yeah. What you feel like playing? Cool. You know Bright Size Life? I played that one. Let's pick another one. Yeah, me too. Let's pick another one. Yeah. Autumn Leaves is fine. So I hope you all know Autumn Leaves. That's another good jam session tune. You're next. How about a hand for Danny Godinez? And he plays with a lot of fire and emotion. That's a good thing. So we're going to get our friend Hal Merrill up to join us. Hal also has done some really interesting solo pedal steel things. Check him out on YouTube. He's got some classical things, some original music. He's actually figured out arrangements for a few of my tunes on pedal steel. I was flattered he put the time in. Thanks, Danny. My pleasure. Maybe we'll see some of you guys at the sessions tomorrow or Tuesday. If you're out and about, please come in and play with us. What do you feel like, Al? Okay. Yeah. Wanna play the melody? Yeah. Okay. Count us in. Would you rather do another one, or is it okay? Got a hand for Hal Merrill. Okay.
Lots of surprises today. I'm not getting the tone I want. I'm just disoriented.
I think it worked okay.
Played this song in a while.
I think it worked okay.
Well, we're enjoying.
So there are a few folks who have not played. Anyone who has not played would like to come up and join us, please come on up.
It's a good thing to practice all that distraction.
Yes, it is. How you doing? Come on up. There's a chord there. What would you like to play?
Well, so I'm a kind of beginner, so
Could be blues.
I kind of wanted to do Autumn Leaves that May.
We can do Autumn Leaves if that's what you're comfortable playing. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going first to Autumn Leaves. Tell me your name. Pleasure, John. That's easy. Me too.
Okay, you should have something.
We're going to do Autumn Leaves again. Do you like this in B flat or in G? First chord. A minor. You're in G. If you're B flat, your first chord is C minor.
Either or.
Just pick one. Either one's okay.
B flat.
Okay, so your first chord. Would you like me to play the melody, or do you know the melody?
I'll play the melody.
Okay. You have the pickups. So you're going to start with this. Your open note is there you go. That's it. Got the volume? You all the way up?
Yeah.
Maybe you can a little bit more, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't know the same. I'm just plugging you in and giving you, so where you need more treble.
I have time for a few more, huh? Good.
Sure glad we set that piano up today.
Well, maybe for the next jam session later on, right? We're ready when you are.
Pick up.
Nice job.
How about I have for John?
All right.
Has anyone else who has not played like to come up and join us? Not today? All right, for those of you who I don't know, and I think I know almost everybody in the room now, but if you don't have my materials, please stick around. I want to get your email, and I will make sure that you get my materials. I'd like to thank Christy and Steve for hosting us. Please support what's going on here at the Seattle Drum School, sessions, workshops, lots of stuff going on here. They deserve your support, and hope to see you maybe at one of the sessions this week, but we sure appreciate you coming out today. Thanks, guys, very much. Yes, Bob. Maybe Steve can handle that part of it. Maybe, yeah. I'm not sure how the. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the finances work, but maybe check with Christy or Steve, please. So.
VENMO at Seattle Drum School. Anyone wants to chip in? Oh, credit cards.
Oh,
Somebody
yes, we have
mentioned-
a donations jar right back at the table, or we can accept donations via Venmo at Seattle Drum School. Or if you have a credit card, I'm more than happy to facilitate your donation that way. Suggested $15 for today's workshop. Also, if you'd like a nifty Seattle Drum School t-shirt, we've got those.
Those are a nickel. I'm serious. They're 5 cents. Yeah.
Of course, additional donations
Yeah.
always accepted.
Limit 20 shirts per customer, though. Yeah, 20 shirts.